So I placed my belts here on my front body in the correct position, and I dressed them. So now again, just to give a little bit more depth, first I want to make sure that all 4 edges are using directional seams. I may want to beef these up a little bit, and I may want to use my doubled material for these welts, okay, because technically they would be folded pieces of self. And then perhaps you want a top stitch around either the welt or the body, completely up to you, okay? All right. The last thing I'm going to do is make utility pockets and flaps. So, again, I've given widths, depths, placements. So, we're going to create the pocket first, which is 5.5 by 6. We're going to create a flap, which is 5.75 by 2. I'm going to make offsets for my placements. From my offset, the placement from center front is 1.25. My placement from high point shoulder is 7.5. In this case, because I'm using an internal line instead of an edge, you don't get the single value where you choose a negative or a positive. You have to choose the border or the center of the line. So this is if you have like a thicker line. And then you choose an X and a Y spacing. So in this case, I'm going in the Y direction, 7.5 inches. Okay, so that's this line right here. And that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pocket flap and place it around here. I then want to place my pocket. Actually, let's not do that. Let's do, I want my pocket to actually sit right about 1/2 inch below my flap. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it an additional 1/2 inch down, and I'm actually just going to trace my pocket. Okay. So I'm going to trace these 3 edges. I can probably delete this. Delete this. Trace. I'm going to trace this top edge separately because I'm then going to move it up 1/2 inch. So my pocket, I only need to stitch on the bottom 3 edges, and the flap, I only need to stitch on the top edge. So even though I used the pocket to trace all 4 lines, I'm only going to use the bottom 3 for the pocket, and I'm going to use that top line for the flap. So I'm going to stitch the flap here, I'm going to stitch the side of the pocket here, the bottom of the pocket here, and the side of the pocket here. Okay. The last thing is you'll notice the flap is bigger than the pocket, so I need to make this line 5.75 instead of 5.5. Should have updated my stitch. Yep. I need to make sure this pocket is higher than my jacket with the same grid, and then I need to make sure my flap is higher than my pocket with the same grid. I'm going to make both symmetrical, and I'm going to place them on the bottom. Get them as close as possible to where they should go. We'll hit dress. Now, the system shouldn't do this, but sometimes it does. So you see how you can still see your internal lines even though they're being stitched. If you select them in the 2D space, there is a line properties show in 3D that you can turn off. And that should help. Okay. Lastly, you can add some stitches. So maybe we want to add a new double needle. We're going to take this green and apply it to the double needle. Let's say the double needle is an 8 from the edge with a 1/4 inch distance between stitches. And that looks good. I'm going to assign it to all of my edges. Okay, once again, I can't really see. I'm going to use that lighter green that I used for my other stitches, okay, so I can actually see it on my pocket. Now, the last thing with stitches is you can always change how they intersect if you have multiple stitches crossing each other. So if you wanted to have a smooth stitch that met all the way around, you could use that. However, if you wanted a more realistic crisscross, you can choose that. You can choose which side crosses over the other. You can have one side cross but not the other. So completely up to you. Again, if I had a bar tack in here, I would probably add a bar tack at the top of each of those. And then lastly, you may just want to turn all of these edges into directional, give them a little bit of oomph. Maybe I'll try, maybe I'll try 0.1. And you could also try giving a force multiplier since these aren't necessarily doubled. The flap is doubled. You could add the double to the flap, the doubled fabric to the flap, just to give it that extra oomph to it. Okay. So that is how we add different types of components. Hopefully that will all help with any types of things you want to add to your garments in the future, to give you an idea. All right.